So are we even going to address the fact that this is a complete and utter ripoff of the Yeti? 'Cause it is. It's a, like, they'll never notice. This is the Amazon Basics professional USB condenser microphone with volume control and OLED screen. Yes, that's the name of it. Not a very sexy name, just gonna say. I'm gonna try to answer the question, who is buying this microphone and why? Also, professional, huh? We'll get into that in a bit, but first, is it any good? Well, I guess let's find out. Now, to start, I should point out that I'm doing nothing to this microphone in post except maybe a bit of a boost. Other than that, though, it's all this microphone, and I have the gain on the microphone set to 5. And if you look behind me, you can see I'm getting a decent waveform out of it. Now, the first iteration of this mic was very different. It had an all-plastic body and a much weirder button layout, especially for this kind of microphone. In fact, if you want a really good laugh, Podcastage did a review of the original iteration of it and trashed it. He didn't like it a lot. Not a very glowing review. In fact, he called the microphone garbage, which it was kind of fair. But I do think Amazon's listened to Bandrew, as they seem to have taken his advice. But we can get to that in a few. In the box, you're going to find a long USB-A to USB micro, which, it's 2020, as well as the microphone itself, and a bunch of paper that you're probably never going to read. This thing is literally plug and play. You have zero issues, or at least I had zero issues. Plugging it in and going is just as simple as that. As for the specifics of this thing, well, you have 3 condenser capsules with a total of 4 polar patterns. The sample rate has improved on it, as before there was this different sample rate for the microphone and the headphones. It was kind of weird that way. Now they're both 192 kilohertz and 24-bit. The frequency response is 50 hertz to 20 kilohertz. And the build quality, well, it's all metal construction. It has a bit of heft. It's like 2.3 pounds, which actually outweighs my NT2A by just a bit. So maybe if you're going to mount this on an arm, I would highly suggest you at least use the Rode PSA-1. Otherwise, you might have a bit of a problem. It's funny, though, considering if you go with that arrangement, the boom arm would actually be more expensive than the mic. As for inputs, it has what you would expect. It's got a USB as well as a headphone jack. I'm not a huge fan of where they're placed underneath the microphone, as when you're using the stand, it does feel like you might be putting some undue stress on those connections. Now, that said, the USB connection is actually quite good. It's not as mushy as other connections I've seen, but I do know it will get worse with time if it's stressed either way. The knobs on this thing, they're okay. They have a bit of movement, but nothing over the top. I will say this, though. They are noisy as hell if you adjust while recording, especially the mute button. So if you look on the front of it, you'll see your polar pattern selector, then you'll see a volume control button, and then a headphone volume control button. And the middle button, the volume control, doubles as a mute button. And this is what it sounds like when you mute it. Now, you can't hear it when you come back on, but when you mute it, it's... God, that's horrible. Maybe just avoid that button like the plague. I guess if you're going live, there's nothing you can do, but it's an unfortunate sound. Now, all of this is a change from the first microphone that Amazon put out under this title. First of all, there's a complete rework, and instead of the capacitive touch buttons they had on that first one, now, of course, you have the knobs. They also included a little screen that tells you how much gain you have and what polar pattern you're on. That's actually a really cool addition to this. Now, as for those polar patterns, let's go through them. This is the cardioid pattern, and this is how it sounds. This is the omnidirectional, and this is how it sounds. This is the figure 8, and this is how it sounds. And this one is the stereo. And this is how it sounds. It's actually kind of cool, going back and forth, left to right. Now, aside from the cardioid pattern, the stereo does come across nicely if you're a singer-songwriter and if you're recording both guitar and voice. That stereo is actually quite decent. I will have to say, though, on a microphone like this, the multi-pickup patterns kind of confuse me. I'm not exactly sure who's using omnidirectional with this microphone or what, but I guess if you need it, it's there. Other than that, also the sound quality on this microphone has completely improved. It does seem like they took Bandrew's advice to heart. And I gotta say, it's impressive considering the price point. The original microphone sounded like hot trash. This one sounds very usable. And that's actually saying something for the upgrade they've done on this. Where the Blue Yeti suffered, though, was with self-noise, and this thing actually kind of impressed me when I plugged it in. Now, for this test, put on your headphones and check this out. That's not too bad now, considering you could hear me actually switching the volume up and down, but other than that, the noise wasn't that horrible, which does kind of set it apart from the Blue Yeti. Now time for the off-axis rejection and coloration, and that was really problematic with the first mic. And to be honest, I don't think it's really been fixed, so here you go. This is the mic from the front on cardioid. This is the mic from the side on cardioid. This is the mic from the back on cardioid. And this is the mic from the other side on cardioid. The plosive rejection is, well, okay, I guess, though I don't know if I want to be up too close to this mic without a pop screen. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. That's me only about 4 inches off. Now, all that aside, it does look like they did do a decent job fixing their first attempt at this mic. All the complaints in Podcastage's video seem to have been addressed. So with all that said then, I guess it's just time for some final thoughts. For one, I would like to say this is by no stretch a professional mic despite what the name says. Now you can use this microphone in a professional environment, I guess, although I don't know why you'd need a condenser for it. But also the form factor alone does seem like a weird adoption for any corporate environment. Well, maybe for you, who knows. That aside though, this is a massive improvement on both utility as well as usability compared to the first version. And it really doesn't sound that bad. To be honest, if you're looking for a mic for conference calls on Zoom, or even just a mic for entry-level studio that you want to get up and streaming, or even YouTube, this isn't really a horrible option. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not going to knock your socks off in any way other than the price. But the price to performance is a lot easier to swallow compared to the last one. The noise level, it's okay when you consider all the other factors, as well as it being a condenser. Though, much like the Yeti, I would say you might want some sort of treatment or at least a messy room to avoid sounding like you're in a tin can. You also, along with microphones like this, need to want the form factor. And I do know some people that love the look of the Yeti, so this does seem like it would suit them. And honestly, I know my last video about the Yeti was rough and it was with an older mic, but the sound quality differences between this and a Yeti, pretty easy to spot. So if this is something you like, I would say this is a low-risk purchase for your first microphone and not a bad idea for a gift for your kid if they're looking into getting into streaming. So then, what do you think of the sound? Is it something you're considering buying? Let me know down in the comments. Also, if you like this video, break the like button by giving it a flying knee to the face. But if you really liked it, take that subscribe button out and show it a good time. You know what I'm saying. Cheers, and I'll see you in the next video.